So now we're going to talk about affirmative action. You know, one of my students a couple of years ago said he knew all about affirmative action. It was action that everybody agreed on, and therefore it was affirmative action. That's not quite what I had in mind for this video. So affirmative action basically means policies that seek out, encourage, and occasionally give preferential treatment to employees in groups and protected groups, which I talked about at the beginning of this module. Lyndon Johnson gave a good explanation for the justification of affirmative action. He said, imagine that you have someone of Caucasian descent and someone of African American descent trying to run a 100-meter race. It's not enough to put them both at the same starting line at the same time, because the African American would have the shackles and the chains of all those years of oppression, discrimination against him while he was trying to run that race. So in order to make that 100-meter race fair, he would have to put the African American worker 30 to 40 meters ahead to give him a chance to complete the race in the same way. So the idea, it's also like it's also part of retributive justice, trying to make up for past wrongs. That's kind of the main idea of affirmative action, trying to make up for previous wrongdoings. So the first challenge to affirmative action was the case of Alan Bake. And he was a white male denied admission to medical school, and he was claiming reverse discrimination. He was saying that it wasn't fair that an African American was admitted in his stead. And the Supreme Court decided to rule in his favor. There was also another case with Brian Weber against Kaiser Aluminum, and Kaiser Aluminum had a two-tiered promotion list, and it said that basically for every Caucasian that was promoted, they would promote 2 African Americans, and that was kind of the way the list worked out. But the Supreme Court agreed with Kaiser Aluminum, saying that it embodied the spirit of the law of affirmative action. And it kind of established a certain precedent in affirmative action cases. Affirmative action has to be designed, first and foremost, to break down historic patterns of racial or sexual discrimination. But it also must not create an absolute bar to the advance of white employees. Furthermore, an affirmative action plan should not require the discharge of white workers, and it should be a flexible and temporary plan. Now, there's kind of a debate. Is affirmative action something that is good, or is it something that's bad? Well, you have to consider aspects of utility. We talk about the greatest amount of good and the least amount of bad or pain. On one hand, you could look at it and say, well, affirmative action is a good thing because it allows minorities and protected classes to have a fair chance. But under the doctrine of utility, you could say it's a bad thing because more people are being punished by affirmative action, supposedly, than are those being helped. Furthermore, theories of justice raise questions about whether affirmative action is even fair. If we want to distribute benefits in society, should we not all have the same burdens? Why should benefits be unevenly distributed to members of protected classes versus everyone else? And of course, you could also look at natural rights. Why should some groups have more natural rights than others? So I've gone through affirmative action relatively quickly. In our next module, we'll start talking about things like gender attitudes at work and sexual harassment. I'll see you then.